Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is LionHeartZ, and today we have another absolutely ridiculous video, and I can't even keep up the bit. I promise to never do that again. Anyways, welcome back to the channel. We are now however many days deep into the elimination stage. I have no idea. Time no longer matters. But what does matter is we are into the very nitty and gritty. The best of ones are done. Never again for the rest of the major cycle will I have to talk about a best of one. We had our first advancement games with the Mongolz and Vitality securing playoff spots first out of the pack. We had our first elimination games, which means we have said goodbye to our first two teams in the proceedings. Every game from here on matters. It is do or die in Shanghai. Let's not waste any more time. Before we get started, make sure you guys take a second, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm, so thank you for doing it. Also, if you're watching this video, I am live co-streaming the major over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/LionHeartZCS2. I'm nearly at 400 followers. You guys have been showing me an insane amount of support over there throughout the event, and I appreciate it greatly. And if you haven't been there yet, I hope to see you soon. Without any further ado, let's get into the video. And first things first, I'm going to drop the facade, drop the overly dramatic sarcasm, and talk to you guys directly for a second. I would like to give you guys a sincere apology for what happened in yesterday's recap. If you watched the video, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I just straight up forgot to cover the second round best of one matchup between MiBR and NAVI. I had the footage recorded, I made the notes, I was getting ready to talk about it, but with everything that's been going on with the schedule, I started recording the video, I got all those best of ones deep, and simply forgot to do it. There is no excuse good enough. I want to make sure I put out high quality content for you guys, and that is absolutely unacceptable by my standards. But by that point, it was nearing the end of the day, I had to get ready to stream the major that night. There was no opportunity for me at that point to go back and rectify the mistake. Again, I am sincerely sorry, especially to the MiBR fans in the audience. I've really liked this roster throughout the tournament, and this is by far one of their best performances. Insani simply decimated NAVI on Inferno, and has put NAVI in a very interesting spot, especially with the context of today's games. Anyways, I am very sorry that happened. I will do better. I want you guys to expect nothing but the highest quality content out of me. Continue pointing out when I make these errors. It will only help me get better. Let's actually get into today's games. And speaking of NAVI, we do have a handful more of late best of ones to go over before we get into those best of threes. And starting off, we have NAVI getting absolutely dumpstered by Team Spirit, meaning that NAVI are now 1 and 2 in the elimination stage and facing elimination tonight, which has legitimately come out of nowhere because losing to MiBR, nobody saw that coming. And again, Spirit, this current Spirit with all its issues, and Chopper decimates NAVI on Mirage. 10-2 T-side half for Team Spirit. Chopper on top of the scoreboard, literally matching Donk's output. What the happened in this game? Because I watched it, and I still don't really know. Bit and Wonderful combined for 5 total kills. 5 kills. I mean, Wonderful, yes, he could be quite the inconsistent player, but Bit is one of the most consistent tier 1 players we have. He rarely goes missing like this. Now, first things first, my pick'ems are on fire right now because I thought NAVI were for sure the easiest 3-0 pick. Yes, favorites at majors tend to struggle. NAVI, of course, had the disappointing performance at the Blast World Finals, but they torched the RMRs. I thought for sure NAVI were going to cruise to the playoffs, and that if they were going to have problems, it would be there against the better competition. But they get blanked on Inferno by Insani, literally just Insani. Then they get deleted by a Spirit that still looks as inconsistent as ever. Like, it's so weird. NAVI are either about to pull out of this tailspin and make a miraculous lower bracket run, or their major is over, and at that point, it's literally anybody's tournament to win. Next up, we had Furia taking on Team Liquid. Team Liquid just handled work. This was a very straightforward win for them, 13-9 on Inferno. Liquid's Inferno continues to look very good at this event, and listen, Ultimate had a great game. NAF had a great game. Twist had a great game. Yekindar, for everything that we have said about Yekindar throughout this year, and listen, all of it is justified. He has been a terrible player more often than not. Yekindar is sure as hell picking the correct time to be a world-class entry fragger. I mean, he had so many rounds in this game where he got a banana, got a kill, got traded out. Got a banana, got a kill, died, traded out. That's exactly what you want on your T-sides. You don't need Yekindar to multi-kill. You just need Yekindar to win more opening duels than he's losing, and right now, he's averaging something close to like 73% success rate on his opening duels. That's genuinely fantastic. For Furia, first thing I have to highlight, Skulls, top fragged. Skulls, much like Yekindar, is having a very transformative major run in terms of our perception of him. He's been arguably the best piece on Furia in terms of consistency and numbers. Serato was just kind of okay, nothing electric like what we saw during the first day's events. And then I think the big thing here is that Fallen and Cello were not nearly as effective as they were in earlier games, and that all combined to a pretty lackluster T-side for Furia, giving Liquid the win. Next up, we had G2 taking on 3D Max over on Ancient. Listen, G2 probably should have handled this game a lot sooner than they did. 3D Max were pretty much Joko and nobody else. Like, I mean that quite literally. Joko had 26 kills and a 1.67 rating in a loss, and only had 2 other teammates reach double-digit kills in the meantime. I mean, he was literally like 1v9ing on some donk shit, like legitimately that good of output. But it simply wasn't enough. No amount of multi-kills could save 3D Max from the fact that everyone else just was not up to par in this game, and of course G2 just have fragging power in excess. So I want to take a second and talk about Snacks, my favorite pastime. Because, listen guys, do we have to relitigate this argument every time G2 does well? Snacks isn't a good in-game leader. I mean, watch this T-side. Snacks' playbook was, go A, but maybe go a little bit slower this time. Or maybe, maybe go a little bit faster this time. Also, I don't know if you guys thought about this, but you guys want to go A? Now listen, to the credit of Snacks, all he has to do with his team is facilitate a simple system to empower the, again, riches behind him in terms of star power. That's obviously true. You don't need a micromanager. You don't need an Alexi B or a Blade system for this team. It's better for it to be loose. But at the same time, there's a difference between loose and simple, which players like Kerrigan have made into the hallmark of their career, and literally tactically bereft, which is what Snacks is doing. He doesn't bring tangible value in terms of calling. I don't think he gives good mid-round calls if he gives any. Again, see that final disastrous round versus the Mongolz. So when casters, analysts, pundits in the community keep pointing out that Snacks is not a good IGL, it's because he's not, guys. And all of you butthurt G2 and Snacks fans need to get off of his nutsack and realize that this team would be equally as good if Nico was calling and they had a support in Snacks' place, if not arguably better. And wrapping things up, the final best of one of the elimination stage, we had Mouz taking on Faze Clan. And this game was an absolute banger on Inferno. It was super close all the way down to the wire. We're pretty much jumping straight to the second half here. It's an 8-7 scoreline. Mouz are trying their best to claw back into this T side and tie the game up. And this round they're kind of going to get pieced apart around B and mid. It's going to get down to Jimmy and Torzi in a 4v2 with a little over a minute left on the clock. Torzi holding the bomb outside of apartments, playing around mid. Jimmy tucked in apps, playing the intel. And Mouz navigate the situation very effectively, I think. They use the time on their side. They're not too hesitant to make a play. They wait to see if Faze are going to try and abuse the map control or give something up for free. Torzi gets advantage of a good pick from the sewers, waiting for the B pushers, and suddenly we're now down to a 3v2. The second B player for Faze has to wait, he doesn't want to overextend. That gives time for Jimmy to work some information towards the boiler side, and even though he has the jump on Brokey, he kind of butchers the spray, isn't able to get the kill, takes the re-peek and goes down, leaving Torzi in a 1v3, but Torzi's right behind him, immediately trades out the first kill, isolates Brokey on the site with no HP, knows the B rotator can't be that close yet, takes his time, gets the reload off, takes care of Brokey with a perfect pre-fire, gets the bomb down, and Rain should win this clutch every single time, but Rain misthrows the Molotov. If he threw it to the right of the box, it kills Torzi. He threw it to the left, it misses. Torzi hits the clutch for the 4-piece, the win, and tie ball game. Now, what's crazy is that we go from an 8-8 scoreline to obviously a 13-10 Faze victory. So what exactly changed? Because these rounds were so close and Mouz seemed in a good position economically. Well, I think Mouz ran into a few cardinal mistakes. They got very punished by late round Faze utility, whether it be a round like here where you have frozen jiggle peeking Xerxian literally to death at the sandbags. Xerxian is so scared to push up and concede a pick that he's willing to sit in a Molotov and take roughly 2.5 billion damage in the process before finally sending Frozen to the grave. That leaves him in a position to be meat grindered by Kerrigan with the MP9, combine that with Brokey, and that's a B push into the drain. But what really sunk Mouz was their unwillingness to not go B late in these rounds. They kept on defaulting at the end of the rounds to a B push, and several times they got slaughtered by late flashbangs that are pretty much unavoidable. The unfortunate reality is, with the B side corridor, is that you cannot really play anti-flash. You have to face forward or else you're going to get banged out by the side player anyway, so you might as well eat the music and see if you can make it through or get ahead of the flashbang. So they have Rain tucked away on site by himself. 4 Mouz players on the hunt, ready to blow up the bomb site. And yeah, Rops is rotating, but he can't get there fast enough to do anything with the gun in his hand, but he can get there fast enough to throw this flashbang over into pool to decimate every single Mouz player and allow Rain to get the triple kill from Dark. And this happened like 3 times. So, I don't know, I think Mouz should have played a little more around the A site. It kind of feels like they capitulated this game at the very end. When they struggled to get into the bomb sites, they just stopped playing with the same confidence they had earlier, and FaZe were able to clutch up off the back of some timely good rounds from Rops and Rain. And with that, we are moving on to the best of 3s for the rest of the major. Our first one is our inaugural 3-0 matchup between Vitality and MiBR. MiBR, the team nobody expected to be here. Vitality, the team more people should have expected to be here. And, you know, listen, let's just call a spade a spade. Vitality put MiBR in the blender. They sent them to hell and back several times and made them look like the lesser team they are compared to Vitality. MiBR are great. They have a lot of upside. Lucalzi, Insani, Safe, this is a great lineup. But they are greener than grass in the face of a true contender like Vitality. This series was so easy for Vitality that ZywOo was just kind of chilling back. Only 25 kills over a 2-map series is pretty tame for the Woo. And he just kind of coasted because everyone else was putting up numbers and they didn't really need him, seeing as how they held MiBR to 3 and 5 rounds respectively. I'm speaking in generalities because what else do you say about a shutout of this amplitude? Insani, who decimated NAVI no less than 24 hours ago, was put in jail forever by Vitality. Which, if you're keeping score at home, is one of my pick'ems correct. Yes. But anyways, I don't think anyone is shocked by this outcome, but MiBR, I don't think it's a big deal for you to get run over by Vitality. You got 2 more chances to make it out of the bracket. You've been playing good. You're now faced with the question that every young contender must face at some point in their ascension. You've just been humbled, so will you hurdle at the next obstacle or not? After that, we had our first elimination game, and it's a bittersweet one for me. We had GamerLegion taking on Wildcard. Now, this is tough. As a commentator, as an analyst, I'm supposed to remain unbiased, though we all know I never do, and these are 2 bad bitches. I want both of these teams to succeed, to prosper, to get the flowers after the great performances they have showed throughout the entire major cycle, but unfortunately, both of them were a bit outclassed for this field, and now one must go, and one must go home. We start off on Dust 2, where Wildcard get off to a great start, taking the map 13-10, and this is a very interesting game from the perspective that both halves were very mirrored, where both teams on their CT sides took the pistol round and looked to be poised to win the early game, but then as soon as the T sides got on the board, they both ran off pretty good streaks of wins in a row, breaking the CT economy and building momentum. However, the big key difference here is that Wildcard ran up a 7-round deficit to take the lead in the half, whereas GamerLegion got stopped pretty early into their streak to close things out relatively quickly. And the big thing for Wildcard that unfortunately was not as present in subsequent games in this series was SUSP and JBA playing out of their mind. SUSP specifically had 28 kills, a 1.88 rating, and was literally everywhere. Dude was just unstoppable, had so many multi-kill rounds on both halves, and it's definitely really telling that the rounds that GamerLegion won were off the backs of taking out SUSP early and exploiting the other players on the server. Felt like Stanislaw and ZTR were pretty evenly matched in terms of the mid-round calling. Both teams operate a very straightforward system, very contact-heavy, very simplistic setups, and that facilitates Dust 2 perfectly. That's just how the map rolls. So a lot of these rounds were who's going to win the mid-duel, who's going to win the duel-up cat, the occasional long and or B hit, and it just came down to, again, who was winning their ones. And Wildcard, they were shooting gooder, that's why they won this map. Unfortunately, that trend just did not continue for the rest of the series. It was definitely close in the first half on Ancient, with Wildcard having a couple of good CT rounds, but outside of winning the pistol and converting the first 3, they really struggled to put gun rounds on the board, and there was just a noticeable decline both in confidence and the expected fragging from most of the players on this team. Suspy, who was brilliant, returned back to the norm in a big way, and when you look at GamerLegion, Wolfmus was actually having a terrible game, and he's like the lead piece for this squad, and he was freaking out, smashing his desk. He was tilted and out of the game for most of it, so that left GamerLegion very vulnerable, and there is a world where Wildcard continue to play consistent and this is a 2-0 series in their favor. Instead, Slend, Volt, Towson took the lead in a big way, especially for Slend, and they just started winning rounds very consistently. And what's very interesting to talk about in retrospect is Stanislaw's exit interview, because spoiler alert, they lose this series. Stan himself admitted that, yeah, they got a little bit scared. The nerves got to them, especially down the second half. They lost their confidence and stopped playing with the same finesse, the same system, the same coordination that had defined them up to this point. And when you watch back these rounds, I think you see that. There's a lot less coordination of utility, a lot less good timing, backing each other up. The flashes look noticeably worse. This was also the case on the final map on Anubis as well. It just seemed like Wildcard stopped playing to their strengths towards the end of this series in a big way, and that opened up the door for GamerLegion. Slend pounced on Ancient, Wolfmus buried them on Anubis. And Anubis was basically no contest. 13-5, they got smashed at the server. You'd think maybe, with 5 rounds on the CT side, Wildcard were in a great position to run it back on the second half, but they couldn't win a single T round to save their life. They were just getting fully exposed by GamerLegion. And so, yeah, they're eliminated. And I just want to take a second to say, regardless of the fact that they went 0-3, which most people had Wildcard going 0-3, I did not, and yeah, I was wrong on that. I think Wildcard were in position to win their games in this series. They took Faze to the wire. Could have absolutely won that game. They were in a great position in this series to win this series. They only really looked bad on Anubis and against Team Spirit. I genuinely think out of all of the great underdogs that we've had run through this tournament, Wildcard were the best among them alongside GamerLegion themselves. This was an incredible run for Stanislaw and these young kids who have never played a major before, and I really hope they take time to keep developing this team, work this talent, and continue to compete in tournaments going into next year. I would make the argument that right now, Wildcard are the next best NA team not named Liquid in Complexity. They are definitely better than M80 for my book. It's not an indictment to take your exit here. You made top 16. That's way more than anyone was ever expecting. GG's to GamerLegion. Next up, we had Pain versus Big in an elimination game. And, listen, I'm just going to be real with you guys. Like, we could be honest, right? Just me to you. This series left me with not a whole lot to say. The first 2 games were close, 13-10, 13-11 respectively, but at the same time, I walk away from them never really feeling like Pain were seriously threatened. At no point watching this series, both live and through today to record the footage, was I ever given the impression that Big were seriously going to upset Pain as long as Pain played to their standards, what we expect of them in terms of their output. And I think that's what we saw. Yes, Big did well to take that map on Dust 2, but also they are a Dust 2 specialist team. I would expect them to be in a big way on that map. And it comes with the caveat that Lux and Kawez, 2 of Pain's most important players, did not have a good map there. So if Lux and Kawez are more involved, I bet you Pain would actually win this map. It did come down to the last round after all. It's just, I want to make sure that when I'm making these recaps, I'm covering something of interest from these games. I don't cover the full games as that would take too much time. I try to pick out things that I find interesting to relay them to you as I give you the general score and the storylines. But simply nothing really stood out to me from this series. There really weren't that many insane highlights. I didn't really see anything innovative from either team. Mirage was an absolute dusting at the very end where Big finally gave up. And, for Big, I don't think they ever had enough firepower to contend with Pain in any real way. Searson was very good on the first 2 maps, keeping up with the competition very well, doing well in the op matchup against NQZ. But then we pull up to Mirage, which, your op is probably the most important piece on a map like Mirage, and he goes 6 for 12. Tabson has his moments, but he was not very good throughout the series either. JDC was the most consistent piece for them besides Rigon, And JDC is great, but I don't think he's any better than any of the best players on Pain, like just straight up. Like at the end of the day, I was not expecting Pain to be in the 0-3 game, but I was definitely expecting Big to be in the 0-3 game, which is why I put them there in my pick'ems. And that leaves us with our last match of the day, our second 3-0 advancement game between the Mongolz and Heroic. And listen, who would have guessed these would be the two teams trying to go 3-0 right now? Not me, though I did expect both these teams to make it to the playoffs. I didn't expect them to do it in this way. But listen, they've played better Counter-Strike than some of the other favorites, like straight up, so I'm not surprised. And this was a banger series. If you haven't watched it, please go back and do so. It's really sick how these teams played each other down to the very wire at times. Mongolz were coming into this with a 12-map undefeated streak. Their last loss was to the goddamn Drillas in the RMR. And first things first, on Mirage, they got ran over, drilled, some may say, by Heroic, specifically Dexter, who had one of his best games since joining Heroic. 25-10, a 1.97 rating with the op in his hands, multi-kill after multi-kill. Here's another multi-kill. Oh look, here's Dexter with another multi-kill. Oh hey, look at that. Dexter with the multi-kill. He did it with pistols this time. Neat. I mean, listen, I am kind of joking around, but Dexter was transcendent. Tessus was very good on the second half. And what's interesting about this is that Mongolz love to brawl. We all know this. Their style is get in your face and see who wins or loses. And this was the first game so far in a while where they lost their gunfights, which is, you know, not usual for them. Mizzino, Senzu, 910, all struggled, all underperformed. Blitz was the only person close to an even scoreline, and even then he was still negative. Techno got deleted, 3 for 16, definitely a disaster. And at this point I'm thinking, oh god, Heroic might actually do this. The Mongolz' dream for 3-0 might be stymied a bit early. And it was about this time that I was starting to fall asleep. I was watching the games in bed. I had ended my stream. And so I fell asleep like at the beginning of the second map. Wake up this morning, and yeah, the Mongolz won. They beat Heroic in double overtime on Anubis, and then swept them under the rug on Ancient. So what was the turnaround? Well, first things first, let's start on Anubis, and we're going to hone in specifically on the overtime because I want to talk about Mongolz' T-side. This is a T-side dominant map, obviously, but only one team managed to have a perfect overtime half on the T-side, and it was the Mongolz. So let's go through these rounds one by one. Very first round here, scores tied 15-15, and if you're Heroic, you're going to kick yourselves over this round because things started off pretty well here. Shush combines with Dexter to get a pick on Mizzino very early in A main, and at this point you would think, okay, you got the man advantage, you just have to wait, play your sights, play your intel. However, Mongolz are pretty much a Hydra. You cut off one head and 3 more frag in its place because legit like 20 seconds later, Blitz blows out the mid smoke, gets a pick on Kicksand overextending, Techno then immediately gets a pick on Nurks overextending out of B, and Senzu gets a pick on Shush, and you guessed it, he was overextending out of A. Heroic overplay their hand and instantaneously get wiped from a 5v4 into a 4v2, and you're now forced to save because it's overtime and you have to play the money. And at least for right now, considering how teams are playing at the event, maybe only Vitality has a better spread of team fragging than the Mongolz, because legitimately everyone hits at a good clip. Blitz is arguably the best fragging IGL in the major right now, and he puts up great numbers by himself. You have pretty much anybody else on this team can have big moments at the drop of a hat, and then Senzu and 910 are showing superstar form throughout this major. Moving on to the next round, Mizzino is about to expose what exactly sucks about playing CT side on Anubis here, because he's going to open up the round, he's going to delete Shush and A main on the other side of the Molotov, that's going to put Heroic on the back foot, Mongolz smell blood in the water, and hey, name a more iconic duo, Mongolz and Conquest. I'll wait. They group up, creep through the A main smoke, Mizzino pushes up to site, takes care of Dexter in camera, and if you're Heroic, you cannot ever go for a 3v5 retake unless something disastrous happens from the Mongolz, which it didn't, which is another strong round in their favor. Final round of the half here, and if you're Heroic, once again, you're in an alright position. The round's going to open up, Kicksand is going to get the trade kill on Mizzino, going 1 for 1, leaving us in a 4v4. Mongolz are going to slow things down, reassess their map control, group up, and start to work up slowly through mid. Dexter, covering the double doors in mid, takes out 910 in short order, giving them the man advantage. However, Blitz, again, the goddamn IGL, just wins 2 excellent aim duels against Heroic players. Just straight up wins the swings, even though Nerds at first has a great advantage on him, still dies. And you know, listen, Dexter should have killed him here on the peek towards camera, but it's a wallbang, so he only takes 40 damage, no big deal. Dexter is following as close as he can, trying to give any kind of advantage to his teammates because it's last round, and you know, he gets through into camera, but walks right into the loving arms of Blitz for a 3k. You know, your IGL just giving you 3 picks in a disadvantaged situation to blow up on the bomb site. Must be nice. I wish Team Spirit could have something like that sometimes. And to summarize it simply, Mongolz carried the momentum to Ancient and buried Heroic in the ground. The only good person for Heroic in this game was NAVI, who had some incredible multi-kills, but it simply wasn't enough. This was a one-sided beatdown 13-6. I really don't have much else to say because the Mongolz, when they win right now, are just overwhelming. They are running teams over. They are peaking at the right time, and the only question is, will they handle the big stage pressure in the playoffs? Because guess what? They're through 3-0, baby. They have an excellent chance to make a finals run, especially if NAVI slip up and get eliminated. Like right now, I only feel confident in saying Vitality could seriously challenge the Mongolz. We have not seen anything else from the other teams in this tournament that makes me confident that they could stop the Mongolz the way they're playing right now. So we'll see. Anyways, that's going to wrap up today's recap, guys. Make sure you leave a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you didn't. It helps out immensely. Thank you for doing it. Shout out to my channel members, Justin, Jesse, Furley, Milan Berta, Bubblesj, and Dr. Cocktor. If you want to become a channel member, you can do so at the link in the description down below. It supports me directly, so please consider doing it. If not, your viewership is always enough for me. I'll see you guys later tonight. Co-streaming the games. Come hang out. I'll catch you guys with another recap. Later.